Hi, you guys. Welcome back. My name is Carrie Penny. I am the Happy Crafty Homemaker, and welcome to part 3 of approaching knitting as a crocheter. I don't know how I'm going to split up this video yet. I just realized, though, like it was easily going to be like an hour and a half long, and I mean, I'm enthusiastic, but even I can't sit through that. So, a year and a half ago, I did approaching knitting as a crocheter. In the last week, I uploaded part 1 of trying to walk you through some extra information that has been asked since the first video came up. And here we are with the rest of my clips. I don't know what's going to be included in this, so this is just going to be a fun exercise for everything. I am going to film closings for this video and the next video, just so there's some kind of cohesion in all this, but I did want to just explain to you what ended up happening. I hope you guys enjoy. If you have any questions, please ask down below. I don't mind having to make another one of these videos to answer your questions. I want to be an informative channel, and I want to help you in any way I possibly can. Thank you, guys. So, another thing I was asked about, or asked to show you guys, demonstrate for you guys, is how I hold the 9-inch circulars, because it is a little exhausting. So if you decide to make socks or anything with a very small circumference, and you decide to use a 9-inch circular, don't expect to just knit for hours on it right out of the gate. It is possible to train your hands to do this for extended periods of time, but the best tip I have found is knit a few rows on your 9-inch circulars, or knit until your hand gets tired, and then change your needle to another project, or change your work to another project. So part of the problem you will encounter is how short this itty-wee needle is. This is a very, very short place to grip your work from compared to needles that you are most likely more used to, a 4 or 5-inch needle. So for me, keeping my work pulled around on the left-hand needle is definitely a little bit easier for me. But you do it more or less the same. I do bring my pinky down and almost use it to pinch where my ring finger is. Now my left, or my middle finger is very, very loose on here. I actually kind of more guide with my middle finger than my pinky versus how I knit on larger needles. Where my hand fatigues with this is actually my ring finger, though, because I have to use that to keep the trajectory of the needle where I'm comfortable knitting and still getting all the way down. So I do actually hold my right hand very differently compared to how I knit standard. And you can kind of see where there's that extra little bit of tension there on that ring finger. And I can pull my middle finger completely off there and still knit. So nothing is going on with my middle finger there except kind of guiding the needle a little bit, but everything's really being done by this ring finger back here. And that's because there's not enough room for me to comfortably knit regular on the 9-inch circular. However, the more you do it, the more comfortable it becomes. A lot of times, I mentioned in a show and tell recently that I've been working on my eyesore socks, because this is, let's be honest, this is pretty loud yarn. I have been working on these periodically while editing my videos and pre-watching them to make sure I didn't, gravely misspeak, even though I still miss that sometimes. But it takes a little bit more getting used to, I find, for the 9-inch circular. There's nothing wrong with that. It just is what it is. Just like with knitting, if you are doing something unfamiliar with your hands, or anything unfamiliar with your hands for that matter, non-crafty, it might take you, and I am a pusher, I'm really bad at that, especially when my stitches don't naturally glide around the needle. Anything you do new that is a repetitive task, here's my stitch marker, it takes a little while for your hands to find a natural rhythm, find where they're naturally comfortable working. And this is no different. It's a slightly different finger placement from your normal knitting. So there's nothing wrong with your hands getting tired faster. That's actually pretty normal. I can't say I'm a full convert to the 9-inch circular for socks. There are things about this that are more convenient, obviously, than double points and the fidgety nature of magic loop. But, it's a matter of preference. I can't say anyone is better wholly. I think I've done double point needles, magic loop, 9-inch circulars, and flat with a seam. And there is a problem I find with every single method. So it's a dealer's choice on what you want to do. That's also one of the reasons why people like me, who are constantly trying to find the way they're most comfortable for things, you'll find a lot of us have socks using different methods on the go all the time. Now, I do favor 9-inch circular and magic loop to DPNs now for making the foot and the leg area, anything where you're working in the round. And that's just because for me, that's a little bit easier to keep up with and travel with. I do enjoy having my projects that I can just throw into a bag and go. I'm less likely to lose these, especially if I use point protectors, than I am if I have double point needles trying to use those in the car. So I hope that was helpful for those of you who are stepping it up to making your first pair of socks, finding 9-inch circulars to be a little bit more difficult to handle. Get this backing out of the way. I did want to show you that you're knitting. It's very easy, even on the 9-inch circular, to still come back. Oh, I cut out of frame there, sorry. So you can be knitting along here, and if it's time to start a rib, it's still very easy, even on the 9-inch, to come in and purl stitches. And then you can unknit, unpurl, where am I caught there? So anything you would normally run across, you could still easily do once your hands are a little bit more used to using the shorter circular with the shorter needle. Okay, so another thing I've been asked about to discuss are lifelines. So I use dental floss for this because I have a water pick for my regular usage, or I use the dental picks with the U. So every time I have any dental work done, or my husband has any dental work done, we end up with these little 4-yard things of dental floss. It's very easy to keep in my pouch with my notions. So I end up just using that dental floss. A lot of the shelters around us do not take toothbrushes, floss, or mouthwash for donations. So we end up with quite a stockpile of it. So that's one of the reasons why I use it. Another reason I use it is it's very, very smooth. It's very, very fine. So it works with a bulky weight yarn or a sock weight yarn. It's very easy to slide out from your stitches. So I do prefer dental floss. It is one of the probably more wasteful things. It is also very inexpensive. It's easy to keep even a full-size box of dental floss in your notions pouch. It doesn't take up a whole lot of room. So if you take your projects on the go a lot, you've always got it on hand. So to make a lifeline, you just run a needle through there. So that way, if you have to frog these stitches out, say I've got another couple of inches and I've made a mistake, I've run a lifeline through my whole shawl, I can rip back to this row and all of those stitches will be caught live. Another time that you might need to pull stitches off and put them on waste yarn is if you're doing a sleeve, if you're doing a thumb gusset, they'll tell you to take it out and put it on a stitch marker or put it onto a piece of waste yarn. I don't tend to come across those parts of patterns when I'm at home. So that's another place that I do use dental floss and a needle. You can knit over the dental floss and trap it in your stitches. I'm not a huge fan of that method. I tend to get it twisted or get it knotted in there, and something always goes wrong that way. I just prefer to run it through with a needle real quick, especially when you're down here on the cable. You generally have a large enough gap in your stitches. So you just leave that in there. Don't touch it until your project is done. And then you can pull your lifeline out. Or if you want to move your lifeline up a few rows, if you're doing a very intricate lace pattern, I normally recommend having 2 different lifelines. And you can take your bottom one and move it up. Take your bottom one, move it up. Every 5 rows, 8 rows, 10 rows, however often you want to have a lifeline in your work. But for more intricate patterns, sometimes it may take you a long time to realize you have made a mistake. And if you've got the separated lifelines, then you've got 2 different points you can pull back to or frog back to without having to lose your entire project. Most of the time, it's not necessary to leave those in. So you've got 20 at the end of like a huge sweater or something. Moving it every 5 to 10 rows is normally more than enough. By then, you should definitely know that you've got a mistake. You'll be able to see it. The shaping will be odd. Another random tip I'm going to throw in here is periodically lay your work out if you're doing especially a larger project, it's not as necessary for something, like a sock or a hat. But laying your project out, and while I talk about how far am I? I'll sit here and just talk at you while I see how this works. But if you lay your work out periodically and take a look at your shaping, how your stitches are laying, are you getting puckering anywhere? It can help you to spot that there is a problem sooner rather than later. I have worked on a number of projects that used a bunch of increasing and decreasing, some odd placement shaping that I was unfamiliar with. And if I had been laying my project out regularly and seeing what I was doing, I would have caught it sooner that I had my increases in the right spot. And I just yarned over there on the outer sides of my stitch markers to create my inner increase. So it's a good habit to get into, to just kind of lay everything out. You don't have to pull it off onto waste yarn. You don't have to lay it completely flat, but getting a general idea of the progress you're making, of how it is shaping and laying. Is it smooth, or are you getting a unwanted pucker, a ripple? Is the pattern looking right? I know a couple of times I have had, in a lace pattern, my yarn overs and decreases and increases will stack. And that's what the pattern looks like. That's what the graph looks like. Okay, I'm doing great. And then when I lay it out, that's not right. There have been a couple that I've had that problem with, where one in particular, it looked like a rose with a trellis behind it almost. And it did not look at all like what the picture showed it as being. And I caught it, unfortunately, after I had put probably about 23 hours worth of work into it, because I was not paying very close attention. I wasn't laying things out. I wasn't, that's, learn from my mistakes, learn from my errors. I did not have the benefit of all the beautiful and wonderful techniques, videos out there. Definitely check Very Pink Knits. Use the search function on YouTube to your benefit. So if I had never made this shawl before, it's no different than working a triangular shawl from the top down in crochet, except I can't see this edge. To me, this edge looks straight when I'm working on it. If I wanted to make sure that I'm still getting a triangular shape, even though this end is kind of curved, I can see, if I kind of move my work away, how that's naturally going to lay down there. I can kind of scrunch and pull a little bit, so I can see that that is going to be a peak there. This is actually the back, because that's the purl ridge. Another thing, so it's a little bit harder to see in the spine of the shawl, but I decided to do The shawl is in garter stitch, so it's bumpy on both sides. But I decided to do my spine with a stockinette stitch, single row, right down it. Just to create a little small bit of interest, a little small detail there. So you can see I've got these perfect little V's, oh, kind of, perfect little V's there going down the center with these bumps everywhere else. That's part of knowing how to read your work. When I came up to that stitch, I could see that on this side, when I come back around, I'll be working on the back of the work. So that would be a purl stitch. If I were working the way I just worked, there's no bump there. So that is a knit stitch. And that's the same way you can, just quickly reading your knits and purls on something like a rib. So this piece that I showed you earlier, we have 6 knit stitches here with 2 purls. So it's a 6x2 rib. And I can very easily see there's a purl bump right there, a purl bump right there, no bump on the stitch. So that's just a quick, how to read your knits and purls. So as you're working across, in this case, I know that that's going to be flat, 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 not flat. So that's a purl, purl. I don't count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2. I just look at it and see knit, 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 purl bump, purl bump. So purl, purl. And that's another one of those, you get used to it over time. I wish somebody had pointed out information on reading your stitches when I was just starting out, but that is a trial and error thing for me. But especially for something like this where it's very easy to see because it's just a whole piece in this 6x2 ribbing, it's very easy to see which stitches are your knit stitches and which stitches are your purl stitches. The more difficult and advanced the pattern sometimes, the more difficult it is to read your pattern because you're adding in increases, decreases, yarn overs, cables, but even there are things that can help you read that work as well. This is, just starting out, really all you need to be able to read though is knit and purl. And sometimes you might want to be able to see a yarn over. So there's no stitch there, it's just the yarn over the cable. And that's what gives me my holes here, my little lace pattern. That's just a yarn over with a stitch and a yarn over. I'm not sure if there'll be any more clips added in here. I think combined now we're already at around 40 minutes of my hands. I would like to thank you guys so much for being patient with me. I do not normally film my hands. I don't have the prettiest hands on earth. I've constantly got scrapes and boo-boos and broken fingers and dry fingernails. It is also very difficult for me to film from this angle. This is my perspective. This is my right, this is my left. You guys are seeing my work more or less the same way I would see it in my hands. I am happy to help you guys as much as I can, but please bear with me as this is a new way to film for me, and it's a little bit awkward and a little bit different. If you have any more questions, please don't hesitate. I will have, I know there's going to be a section that actually shows you my face over there, where I'm discussing some of the places you can go to learn techniques. I've already mentioned, Very Pink Knits here, and there are a couple other channels that have brilliant tips at how to try some of these other techniques that are out there. So I hope you guys are having a fantastic day. Thank you so much for making it this far in my video. I love you guys, and I will see you real soon. Thank you so much for bearing with me with the bad filming and the awkward angles and the over talking and having to split things in two. This has been filmed over a couple of different days and moments. There hasn't been a whole lot of cohesion. I've been making notes over the last 6 weeks, I think it is, maybe 5 weeks, on how I wanted to do certain things. I did lose some of my previous footage that I had filmed with Fair Isle, so I will come back and hopefully do a this is how I do Fair Isle video at some point. But I hope that there was information in here that helps you guys approaching knitting. Once again, this was never meant to be a tutorial. This was just informative and another opportunity to see how somebody else knits. And when I say I knit just like I crochet, I wanted you to really see examples of both. So thank you guys for bearing with me in all of this. I hope you guys have an amazing day, and I look forward to seeing you real soon. Bye, guys.